that too in a very high impact journal. So basically that is the idea behind keeping this FTP, that being a teacher, we always complain that we are doing something throughout the year that was not very essential at the end of the year. Those who do not contribute as much as you contribute, they also get similar or maybe even better than you increment, just because they have very good publications. So we thought of coming up with this idea that why not to utilize that data for the research purpose. Secondly, we face a lot of time crunch also. For 7-8 hours, we are working continuously for our institutions, right? Whether you are an administrative head, or whether you are a faculty, or whether you are a IQSE spoke, whether you are a NAC spoke, right? For NAC, IQSE, we collect, so much of data. A large amount of data is with you. So today I'm going to talk about that what all data can be used for data analysis. How can you make the simple data sound like a very beautifully written research paper? So throughout the journey, I'll be dividing it into two parts. The first part would be talking about that how we can use the data, from where we can get the data, different types of data that we get it from our own institution while teaching, right? And second part would be talking about, once you get that data, how to analyze the data, how to make the most of that data, how to find out statistical relationships out of those data, and once you are done with the data analysis, then in that case, how to make it meaningful for a research paper to be published, right? So this is what we are going to do throughout the session, right? So I'll just share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, okay. So basically, as sir has already introduced, this is a FTP which is going to talk about how you can take the classroom data to publication, how your teaching data, whatever efforts you are putting for 7-8 hours daily, can be converted into a high impact research. So basically, I'll be starting with something which is not very well known, but it is very extremely useful when we talk about research paper or good academic practices. As an institution or as a head, as an administrative head, you would always expect that your team should be very nice when it comes to teaching and learning, right? So there is a field which is known as scholarship of teaching and learning. That is what best can come up with the teaching and learning, how to improvise the practice. There is an entire field about it. So basically, for example, if I'm having, examination data. Now, examination data of a student can tell you so many things. It is not only the SGPA and CGPA that is there. It talks about the pedagogy. It talks about the teacher. It talks about the student's attention. It talks about how meticulously he or she has written, right? So it can tell you a lot of things. It is not examination data. It is a data which can be used for understanding. For example, if I talk about, whom will you consider to be a good student? What are the characteristics of a good student? Tell me. Who could be named as a good student?
Very attentive.
Very attentive, very good. Very
Participative.
attentive, very participative. Okay. What else?
He takes responsibility of his own learning, his or her own learning.
Yes, he is a self-learner also. He doesn't entirely depend on you. That is also very important, right? So if we consider only these characteristics of a student, then also, we can find out couple of students in a class who would be falling into this category, right? Suppose in my class, I have 15 such students. I have identified those who are very attentive, very obedient, those who are self-learners, right? They come prepared for the class. They give me tough time because they ask me a lot of questions. In this way, I have 15 odd students from all the classes which I teach, right? Now, what I do is I want to check an impact on them, right? There's something known as Pygmalion effect, right? For example, if I'm very much interested into psychology part and I really want to do something on Pygmalion effect, which means that I'll be dividing the group of students who are very attentive, very obedient, very nice students as per my judgment. And what I'll do is I'll give them differential treatment. To one group, I'll give a lot of focus. I'll help them. I'll appreciate them for small things. For second group, I'll be very critical. I'll not approve the things very easily. I'll expect a lot of things from them. I would criticize every small thing that would happen. So in that case, what will happen? That over a period of time, the Pygmalion effect says that if you treat two people, even if they are having the same caliber, but if you treat them differently, then in that case, the results would be different. So in this case, if I want to check this theory, what I can do is I can divide them into two parts. One group I'll be very concerned about. Second group, I'll neglect them, or otherwise I'll be very critical. I'll approve their projects, their assignments after a lot of criticism, after so many rejections and reworks. So in this case, I will see whether Pygmalion effect still works on Gen Z. This is a simple example of how, easily you can get the data. That data is already there, right? The theory is already there, but you are testing it for Gen Z because people are complaining often about Gen Z. Even corporate people, they are fed up of Gen Z. They talk about that, these Gen Z, they are not sincere, they are not obedient. So let's see, how does Pygmalion effect work on Gen Z? Whether they are careless, people claim that, Gen Z, they are very careless. They don't care about the opinions of the bosses also. So if that is true, they will not be bothered about the teacher's opinion also. Like millennials, they'll not respond they'll not get panic. And then the Pygmalion effect should have changed over a period of time with respect to Gen Z. So why not to do this exercise? A very simple exercise will hardly take, a couple of days. And that too, you don't have to do it for entire day. But what you need to do is instruct both the people, right? Show concern towards one group, show criticism towards the other, and then compare the results. If the results are like the earlier generation, we can say, though Gen Z acts that they don't bother, but then also, even if the literature says that they are very carefree, they are very careless, and they are not bothered about the feedback, then you can challenge that proposition. And if you find that there is no impact, right, even if you don't care, maybe they are, performing better because you don't expect anything from them. That can also happen. So this is how we come up with sensational results. We come out with something that the researchers or the, reviewers, the editors want in the paper. They want something that has been there for number of years, but that has changed. And being teachers, the best advantage that we have is we are in constant touch with the students. So we are not bothered. I mean, we have ample time with the students. So what we can do is we can see a phenomenon, we can retest it, we can do it third time, fourth time. Do you know why the papers in science, they get published very easily? While papers in, literature or otherwise, if you talk about management, they take a lot of time. The reason is they rely on experiments. Experiments are done again and again. When you do something again and again, it gives you better result, right? So this is a very small example of an activity which can be done, right? For example, if, today I'm teaching them how to make a resume on LinkedIn. Now I have given them this task, and I'm expecting, before starting this exercise, what I'll do is I'll take what amount of knowledge they are having, what skills they are having to handle LinkedIn, how much confident they are, what is the type of content they are putting, right? So that will be a pre-test. And then I will be teaching them, I'll be training them for a couple of days or weeks or whatever is feasible, right? Even if it is a 2-day workshop, 1-day workshop, or even a lecture of 1 hour, doesn't matter. You teach them, right? And then give them a assignment that you are supposed to make a resume on LinkedIn. Now see what is the difference between the knowledge, skills, quality, right? The confidence of the student. So basically, examination data can tell you a lot of things. It can tell you about the change in behavior, the change in outcomes as you change the, change the teacher, you change the pedagogy, you change the, examination pattern. If suppose some student is very good at objectives, but he's very bad at subjective questions, so that can also be tested, right? What things are having the impact on the outcome can be got through the, examination patterns. Somebody who is having excellent attendance, do you think he would score high in the college or not? High in the exams or not? Maybe we can assume that somebody who is very regular, he or she is very attentive, that person may, come up with very good results. So examination data is something that can test the method, it can test the teachers, it can test the students' learning ability, the patterns which have been adopted for teaching them, and likewise many things, right? We'll be talking one by one about all of these when I'll be coming up with the data set, right? I have made a data entirely from my ERP system only, nothing else. I have just used my ERP system of my college. I have randomly taken the attendance of the student. I have taken many things, examination data I have taken, right? So many things I have taken from my ERP system, and that I will be teaching you with the help of Gemovie, how to analyze the data, how to identify the patterns, how to segment the students, how to make the students into clusters, right? So that is what we are going to do. Focus on educational outcomes. See, ultimately we give the education for what outcomes? What are the outcomes of education? Why do people go for education? Anyone? Anyone who would like to answer?
For earning, for better life.
Yes, placements is a very important criteria. Now, if you analyze, you have a data of last, yes, knowledge. To get employed, yeah, okay. To become civilized, yeah. But many people do not think like that, right? That is also one of the objectives, to be civilized, right? So basically, the foremost important thing would be that, people should get good jobs. Now, if you analyze people who are getting high paid jobs, what were the characteristics? Was the student very brilliant right from the beginning? Or otherwise there was a change during the 4 years or say 3 years degree, right? Whether there was a drastic change which took place within those 2 years, 3 years, 4 years of his academic journey. And what were the motivators? Whether it was the teacher, a right teacher can help you to get into very good placements, right? Similarly, the right approach, the teachers were so good in imparting the knowledge. They might not be very supportive, but they are very good educators, and they are imparting the knowledge, which is very important. So basically, that is what needs to be taken care of. That there could be many things. So in research, what simply we do is we only see that what are the outcomes, what outcomes were expected, and what outcomes people actually got. That is what is the agenda of a research. A good research paper would have evidence based, results. That if I'm claiming that a teacher can play a very important role in placements, then in that case it should come out of data, right? Now, how will you judge a teacher? We also collect teachers' feedback, right? Those students who got placed, we can take the data of those students, their attendance, their engagement with the college, their what feedback they have given to various teachers, right? This way we can identify, see, if all the 15 students who got placed, if they have rated a certain teacher very high, then in that case, there is a relationship between the personality of the students and the teacher. Maybe there can be a possibility that the personality of the teacher, the way she teaches and the way she mentors, she guides, we have a duty of mentoring also. Many a times we are asked to behave as mentors also due to knack, right? So basically, when you're mentoring somebody, how it impacts, how that conditioning, how that counseling can help an individual to grow from where he started and how after 4 years his journey was. That can also be a very important research which can have a very important contribution in any of the research papers. The academic papers are always based on findings. Pedagogy, we already know, the methodology, the data is already there. I just have to identify a good idea, right? I know that people who have got very good placements, their attendance, their motivation, their engagement with the college, how many co-cultural activities they have been with, right? Co-curricular activities they have been a part of, right? And how their confidence has been throughout the 4 years. You can get the data, everything is available in your ERP system. So outcomes can also be used, and this will be a very impactful research paper. The reason is that the researchers, they don't want only a research paper from you. The people, the editors, the reviewers, they always expect that, there has to be something concrete about the paper, a new pedagogy. Suppose you have, conducted a new way of uh, teaching. Suppose the other day I engaged my students. I'll talk about my own example. I talked about a very new pedagogy, that is AI debate. What is a AI debate? Now, what was happening that, whenever I go to the class and if I tell them to prepare for debate, what they'll do is they'll start using their phone, they'll open the AI window and they will put the topic, they will get the points, and then they will come here, they will blabber anything, right? Whatever they remember out of the discussion which was there in ChatGPT, and they will be done with the data. Now, instead, what I did was I told them that suppose I'm giving them a topic, any topic, right? So they have to decide whether they will be talking for the topic or against the topic. Now, whatever they choose, they have to compete with the AI, right? For example, if the topic is, are so many news channels really important, right? The student has opted that no, they are not very important. Now, AI will be arguing on, I'll give the prompt to AI that, yes, so many news channels are very important. Tell me the points, important points. Now, the student has to compete with the AI. This pedagogy was very unique. Why it was unique? Because now the students cannot ask AI only. And I'm not giving him the time. I'm calling the student. He's in front of me. I'm giving the topic. He has to choose whether he'll be talking for the topic, against the topic. And, he is debating with AI. Now, this is a new pedagogy. Suppose this is a very new thing which I have done in my lectures. I need to see what are the pros and cons which are associated with this new pedagogy, right? We have been using, we have been having debate competitions for so many years. We all know the benefits of debate competitions, that people, they acquire the confidence to talk. They get, several ideas are shared. It motivates critical thinking. All those things we are already aware of. Now add one more thing in your research paper and your research paper will go to the next level. Just a simple exercise, 30 minutes exercise, just randomly pick 5 students of your class, conduct this activity and make a note on the observations. While you are sitting, you just have to see that whether the student got baffled, right? Whether the student has surrendered in front of AI, or otherwise he's trying to come up with the points. If he is coming up with the new points, then in that case, put those also in front of AI. Then it will give another level of argument. This will help the student to understand that, yes, I have made a mistake somewhere. It is okay to make mistake, but that is how he is learning, right? And at the end of that, what I did was, at the end of this exercise, entire exercise, right? What I did was that I asked the student, how did you decide that these points you will be putting when you knew that, the competitor is AI, which knows everything, which has access to so much of data, the past data, the present data, the facts and figures, everything. So in that case, I came up with another phenomenon, how people learn. From this experience, what was the learning? How they learned from this exercise. That was another mega cognitive reflection, that, when you engage into learning, AI has given this point, I should have said this instead of this. Otherwise, next time if I ask the same question, he may have some memory with this, his performance may improvise, so I can repeat this exercise, see the results, I can put down in a paper that last time, he got this many marks, this time he has got these many marks. So basically it shows that people are improving by practice, which is a very known fact. Whatever is known, whatever is theory, you just have to correlate with the practices. That is what the data can do for you, right? Contribution to academic knowledge, yes, of course, when you are writing the research papers for anything, whether it is for journals or conferences or anything, then in that case, it can be, your own improvement as a teacher also. It is academic knowledge also. It is a teaching excellence also. It can make you a better teacher. Once you understand the psychology of the students whom you are dealing with, then in that case, you can come up with very good results. Now here I have depicted that, we always crib that there are so many administrative tasks which are given to me by my head, my dean. Everybody is bombarding me with so many things, right? For NAC, I have to prepare the files for, everything, every small thing. I need to prepare the files and the data. So basically, there is a academic data, the SGPA of the students, the CGPA of the students, the number of backlogs, those who are failing, why they are failing. With such easy education system, right, wherein the teachers are also very, very liberal, right? The parents are also not very harsh on anything. But then also students, they are getting backlogs. Why? What could be the reasons of failing? And what is the impact on placements? Does it happen that somebody who is having a lot of backlogs is also a brilliant student when it comes to placement? Or otherwise starting their own venture? They are more inclined towards starting their own venture. They don't want to do employment. They don't want to get employed. So basically, this is how the results and the data can be clubbed. You have placement data, you have employment data. For NAC, we have, how many people have gone for higher education, how many people have gone for self-employed, this thing. They have started their own business. How many are employed, where they are employed. So relations could be ample. That is what my question is, right? Subject marks. Some people may be very good at behavioral subjects, but when it comes to quantitative subjects, maybe I'm not very good, right? I may not have interest in those subjects. And that is why also my marks are very less when it comes to accounts, finance, but I'm very good at English. I'm very good at behavioral science subjects. So subject wise, what is the preference? What Gen Z is good at? People are complaining that, Gen Z has very less IQ. They are not very good. They are not as good as millennials when it comes to calculations, when it comes to, logic. Why? Because their logic has been hampered with the help of the technology. They have the technology which we never had. We never had the privilege that, jotting down an assignment was not so easy for us. For them, it's a matter of, say, 1 hour. They'll put everything and they will see what is the result. The other day I was just seeing somewhere, there was a news that one vice professor, what he has done is, he made an assignment which was very, very lengthy in nature, right? And while putting the instructions to those assignments, what he had done was that in between there was a blank space. Now, when you see the assignment copy, it will look like he has intentionally kept that blank space. But actually, it was not a blank space. There was a text which was written and then it was made in white color. So it appeared to be a blank space. However, it was looking like there's a paragraph, there is a space, then second paragraph is beginning, and then third paragraph. But between those lines, there was some text which was white in color. Now, what happened was, the students, they have a habit, whatever is the instruction, the document, they will just copy the entire document, or otherwise they will put the entire document and they will get the answer from ChatGPT. See, using ChatGPT is not a problem. We all know, right? We all can use it, but it should be backed up. It should be an assistant. It should not be a reliance. So this is a very important challenge that the teachers are facing today. The answer to that was, that professor, he had come up with an idea wherein he has written something very irrelevant in between and he has given it as an assignment. Now, those who have just copied it and those who have submitted the report, those were caught because unnecessary questions were also answered in between, right? Those who had read the things, even if they had used ChatGPT, they were still wiser. So basically, you can do a very important research on this also, right? Besides the marks, besides the subject, besides the SGPA, CGPA backlogs, you can have academic data like this also. A simple assignment, right? That is also academic activity. We often give assignments to the students and we are fed up of the, ChatGPT generated assignments wherein the stars are intact. They don't remove that also. They don't do the formatting also. So basically, these research are very contemporary also, AI and academics. This is very contemporary. You can get the data, you can use the data, right? Just you need to apply the test and just see the results. And that will not take a lot of time also, because suppose I have given 1 week to the students to complete. Once I get it, automatically I can differentiate if, irrelevant things are there in the answer. That means that it is a ChatGPT generated answer, assignment, right? Otherwise, if it is a very genuine one, then in that case, it will have only the relevant things into it. Similarly, we have behavioral data. We have attendance percentage, how regular the student is. We have LMS analytics. For example, how many hours people are. Suppose your institution, your university is having a LMS analytics. Suppose I am putting a MOOC on the LMS system. Then how many people have viewed it? Those who have viewed it, those who have started seeing my videos, what is the attention span? How many modules on average people have covered, right? If there are, say, 200 odd students who are seeing my MOOCs, then in that case, how many people have completed till what stage? Suppose 1 week down the line, if I see the data, how much was the progress? In the second week, whether there was lesser number of units which were covered as compared to the first one. So LMS itself can give you very important insights. I understand that LMS system would not be there with all of us, right? So that may be excluded, but instead what you can do is that you can analyze. For example, if I'm giving a assignment to the students, right? And I'm giving them 15 days. How many people have completed it within 2 to 3 days? How many people have completed in 1 week? How many people are waiting for, last moment to come, and they were waiting for the 14th and the 15th day to come. And once they got the reminder, then only they have done this. So this is a behavioral data. It shows how your generation would be, how these people would be as employees. Suppose you're giving them some work, how you can count on them, how much you can count on them. So basically, ERP data is there, right? Attendance is there. You can get from there. You can get the examination data. You can have experiential learning. I told you the exercise of LinkedIn. Suppose before teaching them and after teaching them, their score should vary. Their confidence should vary, right? So this is how, you can test many things. I told you about Pygmalion effect. That is an experiential thing. I have tested the theory that on Gen Z, in today's era, if I apply the same theory, will it give me the same results? Will Gen Z also react as millennials had done? Or whether there was a difference between the earlier generation and today's generation? Why not? Because there is a difference in the dedication level also, right? So a good research is not necessarily from the data only, right? It can be through an exercise, it can be through a survey, it can be, see, like for example, I am talking about the perceptual research. For example, student feedback. If consistently a teacher is getting very high grades in all the assignments, in all the, every semester, he or she has been a very important teacher, a very good teacher for the students. Everybody is marking that teacher on a very excellent scale or good scale. So in that case, it is worth pondering that what personality of teachers play an important role when it comes to Gen Z. People who don't, allow you for attendance after say 10 minutes, if you are entering into the class, they don't allow you. Maybe you are a villain in their eyes. They will not appreciate such teachers. And it can also happen that if you're very strict, they may admire you. But it is an important point to be seen that Gen Z, how they are reacting to different personalities. The teacher who used to be very famous, say 5 to 6 years ago, maybe because of their age gap, they are not able to understand Gen Z, or they are not very motivated to teach Gen Z. That could also be the reason. So student feedback can play a very important role. What student is expecting, if it is consistent, why it is consistent, if it is not consistent, what is the root cause? That is what a research is all about, right? Course evaluation, how people see the course, how the students are evaluating about the course. And for example, if I say that you're permitted to use AI assisted learning records, you can learn the topic at home at your own pace, right? And next week I'll be discussing it with you. Use AI, and I have asked them to be thoroughly prepared with the things. Now I'll see that after learning from AI, they can write very well, but can they speak? That can they transfer the knowledge? Can they teach the students? Can't I see this? So this is the way you generate the data from your administrative task. Nothing much needs to be done. 1 or 2 lectures, any activities that you conduct, you just see the impact. Just think about an innovative activity as a teacher, dependent on your subject, whether you are from engineering, you are from management, any activity, very small activity, very influential activity, play a video, play a audio, just see which methodology could play a very important role in learning process. That is learning analytics. How people are learning, how the students are able to learn the concept very fast, whether it's through video, whether it is through the audio, whether it is from the other sources. So these are the data which are very important, whether it's grade or whether it is the quiz, exams, subjective questions, objective questions, right? LMS, ERPs, attendance records. So all those things can be used. You can use the internship and project data also. Before the project, what was the understanding of the student? Once they have done the project, they have executed it, they have done the survey, they have come up with the results, what is the impact on their understanding? Suppose I've given them a very important task that go to a shopping center, right? You have to act as a mystery shopper. What is a mystery shopper? That you will have to pretend that as if you are a shopper, you are also here to buy something. But what exactly you are supposed to do is you have to observe what others are doing. People are seeing the prices first, or otherwise they are more attracted towards the discount. What exactly they are doing, you need to observe, and you need to behave as a normal customer. That is what task I have given. Before the project, I'll ask, what do you think is the most important thing that the consumers see? After the project, I can still again ask the same question. And the answers would be, believe me, the answers would be very, very different. The reason is that people, when they apply something, when they do it by themselves, they learn a lot of things. They will come to know that what are the challenges for the marketers, what are the challenges with the makers, with the malls, right? How people ignore certain columns. People do not enter into those columns only. So what can be done? They'll be in a better position to give you the better insights. So this is how you can do the various research. Now I have divided the entire session into 5 levels. The basic one is, for example, I take the impact of attendance on marks. Those who come very regularly, whether they are able to secure very good marks or not. That is a very simple research. Now what I'll do is, I'll put one more thing, that attendance is okay, but motivation is also very important. If motivation is not lagging and just I'm attending the class because my parents are sending me every day, then in that case it is not going to have an impact. So what I have done here is, attendance is my independent variable. My dependent variable would be impact on my marks, and there is a moderator which is academic motivator. If I am having attendance also and academically also motivated, then in that case I can say that I'll be securing better marks. So that is a very basic thing, wherein we use independent variables, we use mediators, moderators, right? And I'll be testing all of these for you. I have the data which I'll be sharing with you all, right? And through Gemovi software, which is free of cost, we will be analyzing all of these one by one. So first research could be that you identify the variables, that attendance could be there, right? So impact of attendance on CGPA, SGPA, or internal marks, and the moderating effect of academic motivation. Because if somebody is motivated, maybe they'll be in a better position to use the attendance. Otherwise, if I'm demotivated, I'll just go and I'll sit in the class, but I'll not be able to contribute much in the examination. And in the examination, I'll not secure very good marks. So that is a basic research. Second research could be longitudinal in nature. Longitudinal means you are having set of students whom you are observing for a very long duration. For example, when they were in semester 1, semester 2, semester 3, semester 4, then what was the change in their attendance? What was the change in SGPA, CGPA, academic motivation, academic engagement, new things, right? So basically, over a period of time, whatever data we collect for various activities. For example, if I want to do a mentor-mentee class, I'm supposed to keep the data of my students. I'll be allocated a class of, say, 15 students, right? Now, those 15 students would be my mentee. I'll be the mentor. So in that case, it's so easy to do longitudinal study. I will be mentoring them and I will be seeing the impact of mentoring on their performance. So easy, right? I will be checking that after my mentoring, whether there was an increase in attendance, whether there was an increase in marks, whether overall motivation of the student was impacted, he was more enthusiastic, he was participating in more activities now, right? What changes have happened? And this should not be only for one student. It should have at least 15 to 20 students so that you can generalize, because a phenomenon or a process could impact an individual. But that doesn't mean that, it will be impacting everybody likewise. Everybody has a different level of, getting impacted. So in that case, longitudinal studies can focus about, right, 4 semesters, the student was there, what were the changes in different activities. I'll be teaching you how to do this also, right? Third level is multi-sources. Don't only take the data from ERP. Merge it with some survey data also. For example, I got the attendance data, CGPA, SGPA from my ERP system. Now I am clubbing them with some survey sort of data, right? For example, demographics of a student, where the student was staying, right? Whether he belongs to a urban this thing or rural setup. That also can play a very important role in how he would be reacting. Suppose somebody who has been who has been very privileged throughout his career, those will be having a different attitude. So you can check demographic variables, that is from where they belong, what is the family background, and their impact on what is their attitude towards education. That can be done. So you can collect the data partially the data is with you, right? With the same students, you can get some data that is a multi-source model. So you are not entirely taking the data from ERP, but it is not a very difficult thing also. One lecture, just at the end of the lecture, for a change, you can give them a survey and you can find out what attitude that person would be having. And you can club the two things, their demographic data and this one, and you can generalize that, people who belong to such status would react like this in general, because I have taken the data of say 60 students or 120 students, or maybe for that sake it can be 500 students as well. So out of 500 students, those who were middle class were more sincere. Those who are belonging to elite class or upper middle class, they were reacting differently. So basically there can be a multi-source model, right? Fourth is intervention testing. I have done some treatment on one group. So the other group was devoid of that treatment. For example, I've trained one group of students. I have taken a test today of 60 students. I have randomly, distributed them into two batches of 30 each. Now I will be seeing that, after dividing them, I'll be taking test again. But before test, one group is given the training, the second one is not given the training. So intervention, whether giving the training really works, and if it does work, where it works. See, a good research will not say that it is having an impact. It is very much known fact that, if you're training somebody, that person would always be benefited. But if you say that, it worked, but it worked in this direction and it did not work in this direction, that would be a robust research. That would be outstanding research, because intervention should have degrees, that it had an impact on these things, but it failed to have an impact on these things. So your questionnaire, your test paper should have different aspects to be checked. And this way we check the intervention testing. Fifth one is very important. For example, what if I, segment my students? I have a class of 60 students, and if I can identify that, out of 60 students whom I'm teaching, there are 3 clusters of students. One cluster is very sincere, very attentive, very obedient, whom I say those are good students of my class. Second cluster is they have very good SGPA, but maybe they are not coming. They have very less attendance. So in that case, what should be done with them? And there is a third cluster who are neither coming nor do they have the SGPA. They do not score well also. Now, if I have identified the 3 groups of students amongst my groups, then in that case, amongst my class, then in that case, it can be a very important decision for my class. The reason is the strategies would be different. The same teacher cannot be effective. He or she will have to treat the students differently in order to make everybody work. Somebody who doesn't have attendance but is getting marks, what will you do with that student? Tell me, what will be the strategy? He or she is not coming to the college, but they are getting very good CGPA and SGPA. What does it mean? How will you evaluate that student? What will happen because of that? Tell me, anyone. So obviously, somebody who is scoring high but doesn't have attendance, I will always try to see if they have attendance, what will be the impact, on their CGPA if they come regularly. Maybe it will increase, maybe it will decrease also. Maybe they are self-learners. They don't need a teacher. They can learn on their own pace. They are very comfortable with MOOCs, with AI-assisted learning, right? So those are the characteristics of those people. They are self-learners. Don't try to change them, right? No teacher should try to change them. Instead, you should always appreciate that, they are self learners. You should give them challenges wherein they can apply their skills. The students who are coming regularly and they are scoring very high, you need to be very concerned about them, because they are coming to your college, they are taking up the lectures, and they are making the most of the sessions because they are scoring very high. That is evident that they are using the sessions. And the third cluster, who is neither coming nor is having very good CGPA, SGPA, in that cases, you will have to treat them differently. Now the objective is not that you should make them very great. The strategy could be different for such students. Because they are not coming, first you should penalize them for not coming, right? Or otherwise make them come. If after coming also their performance doesn't improve, then not much can be done about those students. Those students should be improvised up to a certain level, but you cannot do much about them. So this is what is the meaning of the research. There are 5 levels. Each of them will be achieving with the help of the data. When I'll take you through the data analysis, I'll be telling you how to do actually these results, right? If I've collected the data of ERP system, then level 1 is applicable. If I have data of certain students for say 2 semesters, 3 semesters, 4 semesters, then in that case, how the changes are taking place, in what aspects the student is improvising, that would be level 2. Level 3 would be that we are mixing the ERP data and the survey data. The 4th level would be we are putting some intervention. We are putting some, additional point there. And then we are trying to see the impact. And the 5th level, very important level, is a predictive level. How to deal with different students. When it comes to Gen Z, we always generalize that Gen Z is very lazy, Gen Z is like this, Gen Z is like that, but it is not correct. A predictive AI would say that not all Gen Z people can be alike. Some can be self-learners, some can be very good at creating something. They are very good with experiential learning. So why not to have such things, right? So the strategies would be different in case of predictive AI. So all these things we'll be learning in the upcoming session. So anything you would like to understand? Any doubts, any difficulties, or anything you would like to elaborate, any examples which you would like to supplement? I hope that you understood that the data does not mean that you have to collect it, spending so much of time, say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. No, that's not necessary. What is necessary is that whatever data you are having, you need to judiciously use it. All data we are having demographic data, we have examination data, we have academic data, even the behavioral data. We all know, as a teacher, we come to know about the naughty students also, very sincere students also, right? So in that case, you can justify in the research paper, you can write that these were the 4 student types which have been considered, and what was the criteria for saying that somebody is naughty, somebody is a very studious student. What criteria you have taken to segregate the students. So that is how you do the research. Anything you would like to ask before we end up for today?
Ma'am, just to raise one more question. So it's like if I'm teaching a subject, so say, and I'm teaching same subject every odd semester.
Correct.
So can I compare result of this batch with result of previous batch, considering that I tried a new teaching methodology? So then I try to see effectiveness of that methodology.
True. In fact, if you were a teacher, say 8 years ago, sir, the students were completely different when we used to teach 8 years ago. So now if you compare those results, see, the data would be there anyways, right? With the examination section, or even in your database also, it must be there in the form of NAC data. So at least 5 years data you can manage, and you can see in 5 years, What were the changes which have occurred with the generation? How learning has become very different. What used to work before 8 years, before 5 years, and that is not working today? What pedagogies have to be changed? Why experiential learning has become very important? How, this real culture, it has changed the attention span of the students. So attention span of the student is a very important parameter when it comes to learning. Now people are not ready to sit for an hour also. They want breaks in between. Suppose I am having back-to-back 2 lectures, I cannot, continue for 2 hours. Earlier, I used to take 3 lectures also. Never any student used to say, ki, ma'am, we want a break. But today's attention span is very less, and you need to adopt. You need to, take those techniques, those considerations. You cannot say that the students, you are not supposed to take a break. So that is what the research is all about. Research is nothing rocket science. It is the common ideas. It is the new ideas. Actually, people are not aware of, or it has not been proven. I told you, there is a theory, right? Any theory which you like, which you teach, which you feel, right? Which you have experienced as a student, what you think, right? Those things you can test with the help of the research. Anything can be the research question. Anything can be the hypothesis. You can come up with your own ideas that, what data, how I can use this, demographics data. We have so much data in admissions. When we put it in our NAC folder, we come to know that we have diversity data also, we have, gender also, we have age group also, we have so many things in that. The caste is also there, religion is also there, everything is there. Anything and everything is there in that data. How it can impact, the family background, how it can have an impact on learning abilities. Whether person who is from a very lower status, whether that person is more sincere as compared to somebody who belongs to a middle class. You can compare anything and everything. The data is with you. The ideas are with you. These are some of the things. I'll be talking about the topics also, the exact topics also that we can take for, doing such research. But today, my only idea was that I wanted to make it clear to you that the data we are searching for, and which takes, 6 to 8 months to collect and gather, that can be got very easily. You can procure it very readily. It is already there with you, and you have been breaking your head on that data for your NAC inspection, for your IQAC, for your mentor-mentee, everything. Why not to make mentor-mentee a very important platform? Take 15 students under you, right? See how they are improving with different mentoring techniques. That can be a very good research paper. That this technique did not work, this technique works. Why this works, why this did not work. In earlier generation, many research papers have said that this technique really works while mentoring, but here it could not work because so and so reason. So this is how, you need to be very proactive with the things you are doing. You are already doing everything in your college, whether it is the data, whether it is the experiential learning. We all do conduct activities, but we never record the results. We never try to find out the underlying reasons, and we never convert them into findings. That's the problem. That's the problem, right? So basically, that is what determines that, a good researcher would find gaps in the research. What is new? Gen Z is new. So learning is new. Learning is new. So outcomes are new. When outcomes are new, then in that case, the papers can be new. Same topics, whatever people have done, you just take any paper of your choice, just test that model, that theory again. The results would definitely be different because the things have changed. The generation has changed. Their way of understanding things is different. Social distractions are very high. People are using so much of technology, so much of screen time. So in that case also, the things have changed, right? So there can be many variables, indefinite variables on Gen Z, right? So this is what I wanted to ask, to tell you throughout this session. That was only an introduction to the topic. right? Later on, since we'll be starting from Monday again after tomorrow, so I would request that we will be using Jamovi. If in case you are able to download it, I'll give you the link, right? I'll share the link for downloading Jamovi. So it's a humble request. Kindly be prepared on Monday for that Jamovi, with that Jamovi software, so that we'll be saving a lot of time there, and we will be understanding the data more and making sense out of that data, making it into good findings and recommendations, right? Anything?